Alright, hey, it's Haz. So I'm gonna be doing some Quake gameplay. With I've got the split screen here, so you can see both my finger movements and also the actual gameplay itself up in the left corner. So first up, I'm going to be showing the parry heavy style. This is probably the simplest style to play Quake, just because you parry all the time, so it's pretty easy to pick up, and it's pretty safe as well. Like, there's not much, not many mistakes you can make. Just evade and then parry. The timing is just similar to just like a dex and parry, or like a just like any sort of parry of like any hit. It's like that sort of timing, but it's just after the evade. So it'll become more familiar when you start playing Quake, but you're just holding the heavy, waiting for her to evade, and then you let go as she evades, and then you go to parry. You'll see as I move my thumbs, as soon as she evades, you'll see I let go of my finger, and then I press parry. And that means that I'm able to hold the heavy for a long period of time to get those aftershock charges up, to get her damage in, and then I'm able to parry and then just keep holding that heavy down. Later on, I will show some heavy only gameplay, just to show what it's like completely non-contact. Alright, now we're going to move to some heavy deck style. This is probably the most common, just because it's safe. It's a lot safer than heavy only, and you don't make any contact with the opponent. No blocks, no touches, nothing. So this is where I would say she's used most commonly, just because of that piece of utility of not making any contact whatsoever with the opponent. And I mean, you do gain the dexterity buff. So in somewhere like Spite, this may not be the most favorable, but you can still get around it with her concussion. But what I will say is that if you're going up against like a node that punishes buffs, if you know heavy only, you should try that, because that's going to help you a lot. Because it's essentially heavy dex, but you don't dex, you just use all heavy attacks. So I'm just picking a team. I'm going to pick Quake, and we're going to go in here. I think we're fighting an Ebony Maw. Yeah. But Quake, she's pretty difficult to learn, but once you've got the hang of her, she's amazing. There's like almost nothing that she can't do. So, yeah, you should definitely learn her. You'll be able to get, so many things done with Quake. She's not the fastest, but she works really well for a lot of things. She just covers so much ground. Alright. So doing a little bit of heavy only, but mainly heavy dex here, just to showcase that the timing of the dex. So as you can see, my finger movements right here. So I hold down the heavy, and then as soon as she evades, I let go of the heavy, as I did in the heavy parry style. But then instead of pressing parry, I just dex out of the way. It's similar to the heavy parry style timing, but instead of parrying, you're dexing, and then what players often find is the problem is, well, then they're not stunned, they're going to keep attacking you, and so you've got to be quick to time that heavy, to press that heavy down as soon as your dex finishes. One thing that I wanted to demonstrate here was just about heavy dex and how you finish those combos, because sometimes what players do is whenever they finish dexing or finish off with a heavy attack at the end of the opponent's combo, they're left open, and then often they get struck after that. And so there's two ways that you can deal with this. What you can do is you can dex out of the way after the heavy attack, so that it resets the heavy attack input, or you can hold down the heavy attack after you do the heavy attack again. So yeah, I did it just then. I'll show this a couple times in slow motion so that you get a hang of it. So that I dex out of the way, and then I dex out of the way again. Alright, let's take a look at this here. So I'm going to do a full combo here. So heavy, dex, heavy, dex. Now the last hit of this combo is going to be a medium, and I'm going to hold heavy down for it. You can see I heavy out of the way, and I hold a heavy immediately after, and that allows me to chain to my next combo that I'll dex. So I'm holding the heavy again, and I just do the same thing again. Alright, let's have a look at it again. Here we can see, going in for his medium, I have my heavy attack held already, so I evade it, and then I hold it again. And it starts my next combo. Alright, so sometimes what will happen is instead of throwing a heavy, you'll dex, and that means you can just go straight in for a heavy attack again. Also, what you can do if you can't get the timing of pressing the heavy after you've just released the heavy from the final hit of their combo, like I did there, what you can do instead is you can actually dex to reset that input. Alright, now we're going to look at some heavy only. So this is probably the most difficult, and I wouldn't recommend you learning it first, only because it's the most difficult, and the amount of times you'll use it over heavy decks is like not a lot of times. So I'm not really that practiced with it, so you see I do make a few mistakes, but like once I get into it, like I can usually do okay at it. But yeah, like sometimes it takes a bit of time to get into it, and yeah, I'm not perfect. I get hit a few times because I don't really practice Quake that much. She's only a 4-star, so I don't get too much time to practice heavy only, but when I can, I try and practice it. But yeah, I do make quite a few mistakes here. So usually I stick to heavy decks. That's just the one I find easiest. But if there's a time where I need heavy only, I would say I would be okay. I might get hit a couple times, but if I had to use it in a fight, I think I'd be alright. And I think that's important. As long as you know heavy only, you don't have to use it all the time. But as long as you know like some of it, so like how to do it, just like even okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Then you'll be able to tackle those really specific things that heavy decks kind of struggles with a bit, which is very minimal. Like there's not a lot of things that heavy decks can't do. Yeah. So you can see my finger movements. It's almost like I'm holding down the heavy for most of the time. I'm only lifting my finger off when she evades, and the timing is really specific because you got to hold the heavy pretty much as soon as she finishes evading. If you're like a little bit too early, then the heavy won't register. If you're a bit too late, then you'll get hit.